Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street, presented by Plaza Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Here is Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel, Russell Aaron, Gary Vickery, and I'm your host, Lisa Melmed. Today we have a guest who is truly responsible for making downtown Vegas what it is today. Oscar's Steakhouse is named after him, but more importantly, he was the mayor of Las Vegas and a former lawyer for people who had some sort of involvement in organized crime.
Well, they were reputedly involved.
Reputed mobsters.
Who's interviewing? Wait a second. Is this your interview or mine?
Sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
Well, not accepted.
Sorry.
Reputed mobsters, please.
Reputed, excuse me. Introducing the man who needs no introduction, Oscar Goodman. Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street.
Well, this is very cool. I'm looking forward to the podcast here.
Yeah.
Good to have you here, Oscar. Thank you. Thank you for your
Jonathan.
time.
Well, thank you. It's always nice being here, and the check is in the mail, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Always is.
Let's start from the beginning. How did you get to Las Vegas?
By car. No, I was in law school at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and I didn't like law school.
You didn't?
I did not. I really did not. I loved my college experience. I went to a small Quaker school, Haverford College, outside of Philadelphia.
What'd you study there?
Just general liberal arts. I was a philosophy major, sociology minor, and I loved every single day, and I was the world's worst athlete, but they only had 431 men attending, so whoever could stand, and I was barely able to do that. They handed a football helmet, so I played football there, and just had a great time. Then went on to law school, and it was in the early 60s when most of the people who went to law school, and there were very few women who attended law school at that time. I think I only had 2 in my class. Now most of the law schools are more than half female. And the fellas who were in my class, they wanted to be corporate lawyers. They wanted to be transactional lawyers. They wanted to do paperwork, work on issues of a business nature, where I was interested in civil rights. So I was going nuts. I got married after my first year in law school, and I didn't like the fact that my wife was supporting me, working my way through law school. And one day I went down to the City Hall in Philadelphia. I walked 20 blocks and didn't know a soul there. Went to the district attorney's office, and I knocked on the door of the district attorney, Jim Crumlish, and said, "Mr. Crumlish, I'm a student at Penn Law, and I really would like a job as a clerk in your office." He said, "Well, you may have lucked out, because one of our attorneys just won the first conviction of a Teamster official in the United States," which is very interesting, very timely in view of the Irishman coming out now, and same people were involved at that time. And he said, "Go down the hall, Arlen will see you." It was Arlen Specter, who became senator, United States senator, was on the Warren Commission, the whole works. And he said, "I'll give you a job, but you're going to have to work a 40-hour week. And I know people who go to Ivy League law schools, they don't work that kind of time, but if you're willing to do that, I'll pay you $1 an hour." I said, "I can't wait." I said, "When do I start? Now?" And he said, "Yes." And basically, I worked there. I was very, very happy. And a wealthy widow.
$1 an hour?
$1 an hour.
Was that a lot?
It was not a lot, but I was happy just to get away from all the corporate stuff and all these. They were nice guys and nice ladies who were in my class, but our interests were completely divergent. So a wealthy widow was killed in downtown Philadelphia, and the fellas who killed her took $300,000 from under her mattress, and they took it out to Las Vegas to launder it at the crap tables here. And they were arrested, and they were released on a writ of habeas corpus, being represented by Harry Claiborne, who was the premier criminal defense lawyer of the time, and then rearrested for the murder when they went to Omaha, brought back to Philadelphia for trial, and they raised a search and seizure issue under the Fourth Amendment regarding the search that took place in Las Vegas. And Arlen assigned me to work up the testimony of the 2 police officers who came back, and they after 4 hours in Philadelphia City Hall, cold, dreary November night, the wind was just going right through this old stone building. It was freezing. They said, "What are you doing here?" And we were very provincial in those days. I said, "Where else is there?" They said, "Las Vegas." Went home that night, woke my wife up. I said, sweetheart, how would you like to go to the land of milk and honey? And she says, I love you, but I'm not going to Israel. And but that's how we ended up. He said, how did we get here? We drove across the country, and I had a job waiting for me in the DA's office here as a clerk while I studied for the bar exam, and that's how it all started.
You know, I think people like Lisa who are young can only imagine what Las Vegas must have looked like back then. What did you see when you drove in
Well,
here?
it's amazing. We were coming in through Boulder City, and we stopped at the top of the hill overlooking the entire valley,
Exactly.
and a tumbleweed rolled in front of the car. And I hadn't seen a tumbleweed outside of a cowboy movie. Didn't know what it was. And my wife said, where have you brought me? I said, the land of milk and honey. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. There were a couple of twinkling lights in the desert.
That's it.
There was not a hotel taller than, at that time, in 2 stories to my recollection. The highlight was in front of a hotel. There was like a genie that stood like that, I believe, the old Dunes Hotel. And it was just a little cowboy town. 70,000 people lived in Las Vegas. In the whole valley, there weren't 100,000. Now we have 2.1 million. And it's a whole different ballgame. Now we're a world-class city with things that we never would have dreamed of in those days.
You always tell the story during the dinner series and other times I've spoken to you about it where it was the guy at Caesars who called you for legal advice, and that sort of got you into the profession that you went into with
Not really, Jonathan. My dad, wonderful, wonderful man, he realized that we were 2 young people starting out, and he gave us a great gift, $25 a week that had to be spent on entertainment, on food, a movie, a trip. Could save the money, but it couldn't be spent for rent or necessities. And I would take Carolyn to a place called the Hacienda. It's where the Mandalay Bay is right now. And they had a nice little steakhouse, not as good as Oscar's. Don't even think that, but a nice little steakhouse called the Charcoal Room. So we would spend, let's say, $12 on a steak dinner, and then she'd have $13, if my math is good, left over, and she would sit down at the blackjack table, and invariably she would win. If she lost $13. That was it. And I think the Plaza sort of has dealers who still talk and look at their customers and smile.
We try to encourage that.
I understand that, but most of the places don't. They're automatons or robots, and they'd probably be good models over at CES. I don't know, but in those days, the dealer, and she always sat down with the same dealer, a fellow by the name of Bob Butler, and we became friends. I would not play because I didn't want to be thought of as a sucker, because I know they weren't building these beautiful casinos with people beating them. But she was doing it for just pleasure, and I would stand behind her and talk to Butler, and we became friends. And one day he called me up, and he said he's run into a little misfortune economically, and would I be able to do a bankruptcy for him? I didn't know a bankruptcy from a schbankruptcy. I had no idea what it was, but I had a motto in my office: where there's a fee, there's a remedy. And I learned how to file a bankruptcy, which I did for him, charged him $250, including the costs. He was happy, I was happy, and that's how it all started. A lot of people say I was sent out by the mob, not the reputed mob, the mob, to represent them in Las Vegas. We came out here with $87 in our pocket. If they had sent me out, they would have treated me a little better than that. And phone call comes into the pit. And nothing's changed over the years. Nobody in Las Vegas ever says they don't know. Everybody knows everything in Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
Right? And
Absolutely.
the phone call comes in. Who's the best criminal lawyer in Las Vegas? Well, Butler's dealing cards, and the guy who answered the phone is the pit boss. Who's the best criminal lawyer in Las Vegas? And Butler says, I don't know whether he does criminal work, but call Oscar. And that's how it all started. I got a phone call. Guy with a hoarse voice. Turns out his name was Bob Martin. He was the odds maker for the entire world. He set the line for the entire world. That was his job. As a matter of fact, he was associated with this hotel when it was the Union Plaza with the fellow who was running the race and sports book here, Johnny Quinn. Mm-hmm. And he says, come to such and such an address, and I have something for you. You're going to be hired on a case. Well, I'm not the bravest guy in the world. I said to Carolyn, I said, would you drive me to this address?
Keep the car running?
I said, I'll be right back. And I ran up, and the guy comes there, and he says, "Here are 3 dimes, and you better win the case. You'll get a phone call tomorrow." I didn't know what a dime was. I had no idea what a dime was. I get back in the car. I said, "Sweetheart, drive around the corner. I got to see what's here." I opened it up, this envelope, $3,100 bills. I had never seen $3,000 at one time in my entire life. And I said, I better win the case. And it was an impossible case. You couldn't win it. It involved a violation of the Dyer Act, which is when a car is stolen in one state, found in another state, and whoever is behind the driving, the wheel, if he didn't own the car, he's charged with a Dyer Act violation. It was the easiest thing in the world for a prosecutor to win, and they built up their record by winning these Dyer Acts. Went to trial, and it turns out that the fellow that I'm representing is the brother, a stepbrother actually, of a alleged mobster who was in charge of bookmaking all through the Northeast United States. Very well-respected gentleman. They called him the professor because he looked like a professor. And he said, "You better win this case." Well, I had never tried a federal case. This is only the second case, really, that I tried. I was a young wise guy. And got so nervous that I didn't know how to pick a federal jury. I actually threw up on the courthouse steps the morning of the trial. And I hope that the Mob Museum is going to put that bronze plaque up there. This is where Oscar barfed. I don't know, but I've been promised that by Jonathan Ullman, who has broke his promises in the past. So there's no problem living with that. And the case was tried in 1966 on St. Valentine's Day. Imagine a federal trial just lasting one day, jury selection, witnesses, and the like. And the jury went out about 4 o'clock. My office was about a block and a half from the federal post office and courthouse where the Mob Museum is now situated. And the brother, the alleged mobster, says, is it better if the jury comes back quickly or whether it takes its time? And I said, oh, that's not even close. I said, the longer they take, the better off we are. Walk the block and a half. The phone's ringing when I get to my office. Jury has a verdict. I said, I told you that the shorter it takes, the better off we are. So we went back there, and I think the jury actually felt sorry for me. I swear. There's no reason. And I couldn't win the case if I tried it 1,000 times. I won it. And from that point on, I became the darling of a certain group of clients. And just one case led to another case, led to another case, led to another case.
Did you know they were mobsters?
I didn't know what a mobster was.
So there were no whispers when you moved to Vegas, like this whole place is run by the mob.
And they don't have it tattooed on their forehead. I was just told that this guy is, the biggest bookmaker in the Northeast. And he knew Meyer Lansky, who was the head of the national and international crime syndicate as far as finance was concerned. Lansky had a problem out here. Who do we use? Oscar. And the other defendants, who were the owners of the Fontainebleau Hotel down in Miami Beach, very, very prominent people. They had the finest lawyers in the country. They all went to trial. I kept Lansky out of the trial because of his health. They all got convicted, and I got the case finally dismissed based on Lansky's health, and they said, this guy from Vegas is unbelievable. He won Meyer's case.
So obviously you're a smart guy. And
I'm a lucky guy.
Okay, and you're lucky. But you're lucky, you're smart. But there's got to be something that allows you to develop a relationship with all these people. And if you could pinpoint it down to, obviously, your trust, you respect it, but there's got to be a...
Well, we have it. You and I have it.
Okay.
That kind of relationship.
I agree.
Really, if we have something in writing, and maybe 6 years ago we did, I don't think either of us has ever looked at the document. Everything's done on a handshake. If I say I'm going to be here at 2:30 today, you can go to sleep on it.
Well, that's true.
I'm serious. That's the way it is.
But John, what did you find in? I think that Oscar is your mentor. What did you see in him? What did you trust in him? How did you
develop a mentorship or in a relationship?
Well, his mentor. I'm his friend. There's a difference.
No, and a mentor in many ways. But
I've heard you say that a few times.
Well, because I mean it. But I think there's something that I was trying to, get across with Oscar and his relationships. And obviously, long before I ever met you, the way you were able to build relationships with these people is pretty amazing. And I say these people, good, bad, indifferent. Just you had a name and a respect with this community, that they loved you and they trusted you with everything, right? I mean,
I don't know how it comes about. I rarely let my clients, when I was actively practicing criminal law, take the witness stand because they would not be able to withstand the rigors of cross-examination by a first-class prosecutor. And I figure I would do better if I spoke to the jury. And I never said anything to the jury that I didn't believe myself. I wanted to make sure that the prosecution did its job right, that they followed the Constitution, and the juries believed me because I was telling them the truth. When I ran for mayor, the same thing. I never lied to my constituents. If it didn't work out, I told them I was wrong, not too often, and they trusted me, and I think that's what it's all about. I don't know how people develop trust in each other.
But that's how you were able to go to sleep at night, right? You did
I had
all
no
that
problem.
just by your own law, by your own degree.
I've never had a problem sleeping.
Sure.
No, I did the Lord's work. I did. No, I did. I did the Lord's work. I had lying FBI agents. I had lying cops.
That's my point.
I mean, and they were trying to frame clients. I was never in a federal trial where I didn't catch an FBI agent in a lie.
Do you trust FBI agents today?
Today, I think I haven't been in the courtroom with them for 20 years. I think it's a different breed of cat. We had FBI agents here who they took it upon themselves to have a vendetta against Las Vegas. See, you're all too young to remember how people felt about Las Vegas. I would try cases all over the country, and the judges would say, "What hotel do you live in?" I mean, they believed it. They didn't know we had schools and churches and synagogues and parks, and they looked at us like we were second-class citizens. And wherever I went, they made me become a member of the bar. I've been a member of more bars, and not just the drinking bars, a member of more legal bars than I think any lawyer in the history of the world, because they were waiting for me to make a mistake so they could throw me in the can. That's why I'm always on time, because if I gave them cause, if I were late for court, they would have thrown me into the can. And I've been threatened with it. I've been sent to jail, that kind of thing. So I know what it's all about. But in answer to your question, I think it's just a matter of being able to look somebody in the eye and not blink and tell it the way you think it is. I'm not always right. I think I am.
And do what you say you're going to do.
And you have to keep your word.
I think a testament of how much people trust you and adore you is, I heard a story, Jimmy Chagra gave you $25,000 one night when you went out gambling with him.
Well, he thought I brought him good luck that night. Chagra lived across the street from me. It's funny. Jimmy Chagra had two brothers. Lee Chagra, who was probably the best. Well, Texas has had some pretty good lawyers. Percy Foreman, Racehorse Haynes, but Chagra's brother, Lee Chagra, was about as good as it got. I get a phone call in the middle of December of 1978 that Lee was in his office where he had been subjected to a robbery, and he was shot.
Oh.
And the fellows who killed him stuffed his face with cocaine, took whatever money he had in the office. An investigation ensued. Lee died, and the federal grand jury met. And I got a phone call from Johnny Quinn, who was with the Race and Sports Book here.
Yep.
He headed it up, and I had represented his father-in-law in Omaha and was successful in that case. And Johnny said that a relative is a suspect. They called him the missing cowboy. That's the way he was described. They thought that he had something to do with Lee's murder. Would I go down to the grand jury? He's been subpoenaed. So the two of us fly down to El Paso, and we walk into the room, and the U.S. attorney's name was Jamie Boyd, and Boyd says to me, I didn't know him from Adam, he says, "Mr. Goodman, your client could go home. He's not a suspect." I said, "That's great. We'll turn around and go home." And there was a fellow there who looked very much like Saddam Hussein. Had a big, bushy, black mustache, and he said, "You're the lawyer from Vegas." I said, "I'm from Vegas." He says, "I may need you." I said, "That's what I do. What's your name?" He said, "Jimmy Chagra." Now, I had never heard of him. And even though he had a reputation as being the biggest gambler in the history of Las Vegas. And I said, "If I could be of service to you, give me a call." He said, "Well, you could do me a favor." I said, "What can I do for you?" He said, "Well, I live out in the valley, and there's a home across from mine that I want to buy for my maid. And I said, well, describe it to me. Do you have an? No, I'll describe it. It was my home.
Oh.
He didn't
Did he
even
know that? Oh, he
no.
didn't know.
And I said, no, it's not for sale, not now. But we became knowledgeable of one another. And then when Jimmy finally became under suspicion for drug violations, he called me up one night and he said, let me take you down and playing craps. I said, Jimmy, I got more bad habits than anybody in the history of the world. I drink too much. I'm going back a long time. I'm still drinking. And I gamble too much. I said, I don't want to learn any more games. He said, I'm going to teach you how to play craps. I said, no, I'm not going to learn how to play craps. I'll go completely broke then. He said, well, come on down, and we come to the horseshoe. And he has a string of good luck, I guess. He's playing craps.
Was Benny there?
Benny was there. Benny treated him like a king, as did Caesar's Palace.
Of course.
I mean, they gave Caesar's Palace dealers gave his wife a Lincoln Continental. The dealers gave him a statue of himself. I mean, he would tip $1,000 a night to the dealers. A big spender. At the end of the night, he says, here's 25. I said, 25 what? He said, 25,000. I said, I'm not going to take your money. He says, take it. You brought me good luck.
You took it?
Yes, I did not report it.
Have you received any other notable gifts from any clients?
Oh, I have? What are you, an IRS agent?
No, I'm just curious. But let's talk about how your transition after having an incredible career as a defense attorney, you then became the mayor of Las Vegas.
Right.
What was the conversation like with Carolyn when you told her you wanted to run?
Well, she knew I was unhappy. I had done everything that a defense lawyer could do. I represented Judge Claiborne, federal judge, in the first impeachment trial before the United States Senate of the last century. Big case up in Reno with Joe Conforti being the owner of the Mustang Ranch up there, testifying against him. And we beat Conforti up real good, but Claiborne got convicted of a minor tax violation. But that was a big deal, appearing in front of... I'm the first civilian. When I say civilian, I'm the first non-royal person or elected politician ever to appear on the Capitol floor when we had the trial. And so I did that. I represented Jimmy on the assassination of the federal judge down in Texas and got an acquittal. So that was the alpha and omega, and a lot of things in between. Spilaccio got killed, got murdered. Buried.
Was there a part of you that thought, you know what, this whole game's getting too dangerous or getting too...
No.
You just felt like a change?
I felt like I had accomplished everything that I wanted to, and I didn't realize how much time I had when Spilaccio got murdered. I spent an inordinate amount of time representing him and keeping him out of prison, out of the electric chair. And never spent a day in jail other than being arrested and waiting for me to come back to Las Vegas to get him out. And which is amazing because the FBI says he killed 26 people, and I say shame on them not getting one conviction. But that's neither here nor there. And I said to Carolyn, I said I want to have a meeting. We have a very closely knit family. I have 3 wonderful sons, a beautiful daughter, and I want everyone to get together. We're on a cruise. Interestingly, we're on a cruise in the Caribbean, bouncing around on the bounding main. And I said, I want to do something different. And they said, what do you have in mind, Dad? I said, I think I'd like to run for mayor. Well, we have a family that takes a vote on everything. Carolyn abstained, and the 4 children voted 4-0 against me. I said, why? They said, Dad, there's no way you can win. You got more baggage than the sky cabs out at the airport. I said, you're wrong. The people around here know what I'm about, and I'm going to win. If I file, I'm winning. And they said, no, it would be horrible. Well, it turned out in the beginning they were sort of right, because I filed on a Friday, and that Sunday I went down to my driveway, and the Review-Journal, which I abhor, and if people don't know what that means, I hate it. I can't stand that newspaper, but that's besides the point. Their headline in the editorial section was, anybody but Oscar for mayor. It was a great way to get involved with politics. And then the next week, this is the greatest, the San Francisco Chronicle. And I wouldn't go to San Francisco for all the money in the world. They got nothing there. They got a cloud. You can't see the stupid bridge. I mean, everything costs twice as much as in Vegas. So their newspaper says, Las Vegas should not elect the barrister to butchers. I'm saying, what's their difference? What do they care what Las Vegas does? But I ran and I won. And
what percentage of the vote did you get? Year one,
65-35.
Okay, it's pretty good.
Well, they called it a
It's pretty
landslide.
good.
I was very disappointed. And
Yeah.
the second time I won 87%, and the
Right.
third time 84%.
Were you
And-
happier with the second time? Was 87
Oh yeah,
more in the ballpark?
well, it was. I won in 92 the third time, but people said, "Look, he's going to win. I'm not going to vote."
I don't think people, when they say 87%, realize in politics to get 87% of a vote is.
Oh, I understand,
absurd.
but I'm my question.
And the mayor, current
what
mayor,
that
only
bar
got
was.
84% in her last election, so you'll always have that record.
I'm very happy.
Most popular mayor ever.
I'm very happy. But she got back at me because the stupid legislature
Yeah.
passed a law saying that her term is extended an extra year, so she'll have served 13 years. I served 12, so it'll be a quarter of a century of Goodmans. But she said, I beat you. She held a press conference saying, I beat him.
Are you competitive, you two?
We love each other too much to be that competitive. And I have to eat.
You know,
You have to eat.
that's right.
That's
Other
why we
than
have a steakhouse.
other than wanting a change of career, why mayor? I mean, you could have done anything. What is
I
being
love
a
Las
mayor?
Vegas, Jonathan.
Hold on. Can we just get over this? You're calling me Jonathan on this podcast, and I haven't heard you call me
Johnny!
Jonathan. I haven't heard you call me Jonathan in
No,
5
I
years.
was very
It's very
serious for a
uncomfortable
second.
for me.
I'm halfway through my drink. That's why. Johnny, I love Vegas. When I was back in Washington representing Judge Claiborne, I found out what kind of town that is. It's a town of people who are all they're not happy. They're not happy back there. As a matter of fact, I had a couple of senators wanting me to run for U.S. Senate, and they asked me to come back, and they courted me. And the truth of the matter is, my friend Arlen, who had hired me in Philadelphia in the DA's office, he says, and I was a Democrat at the time. He said, and he was a Republican. He says, you've got to run. I said, why do I have to run? He says, we don't like each other back here. We need somebody like you who'll have a party every night. I mean, you'll make us laugh. You'll have a good time. There'll be some life here instead of hatred. Didn't like the town, so I wouldn't want to go there. I learned about Carson City. I represented an oral surgeon up there charged with sexually molesting a lot of patients. And I mean, they ran out of gin the second day. So I knew that was not a place where I wanted to spend any time. So that sort of did it. I knocked out Washington, knocked out Carson, and it was Las Vegas. And that's the reason I ran for mayor.
Did you have a plan before
I never had a plan in my life.
Your wife was helping you through law school. You were building a future for something. Did you have a plan after you graduate, what you were going to do? Did you have any of that?
No idea. I couldn't get a job anyplace, so I took the first job offered to me, the only job offered to me. I had two jobs offered. One, which would have been very interesting, would my life have been different, Klamath Falls up in Oregon. They offered me a job as the district attorney, coming right out of law school. I would have fallen asleep before I even got there. I mean, can you imagine me in Klamath Falls, Oregon?
Oscar Goodman in Oregon. I can't see it.
Well, Oscar Goodman in Klamath Falls is even worse. I'd become a fisherman. I wouldn't be a mayor. I'd be a salmon fisherman. No, that wouldn't have worked. And then the job offered by Ted Marshall, who was the DA here in Las Vegas. And so you say, why did I come to Las Vegas? I had a job. Nobody else wanted me.
Were there any projects that didn't come to fruition while you were mayor that you wished did?
Yeah. There were three things I wanted to accomplish. And this is not knowing this while I was running, because until you're the mayor, you see same eyeglasses, but you see things completely different once you're elected. I walked the same path every day when I went from my office on South 4th Street to the courthouses, the same path that I walked to City Hall when I filed, the same path that I walked to City Hall when I was being sworn in, and it looked completely different. Downtown was lethargic. There was no energy here. The first signs of blight, I didn't know what blight meant. Doors being boarded up. At 5 o'clock, it's as though there was an alarm that everybody left town. And I said, in order for us not to become like some of the places where I went to when I'm trying cases, like Newark, that look like a war zone, or San Diego, the beautiful gas lamp district there, it wasn't so beautiful. There were little like gnats or something in every doorway with the urine and the feces and the bums, the homeless, whatever. And I didn't want to see that happen here. So I said, there are three things that make a great city. One, great culture. And I got lucky. I was able to acquire the 61 acres we call Symphony Park and make that into really something very, very special. And of course, we got the Smith Center of Performing Arts, which is world class. Then Larry Ruvo, a friend of both Johnny's and mine, he agreed to move his project with the Ruvo Brain Institute down to Symphony Park to be the keystone of the project. And we have the finest in medical care as far as neurodegenerative diseases are concerned, so that was awesome. But the one thing I couldn't do, I couldn't get a sports team. And when I say sports team, I always had a beef with these people who had the minor league teams. I said, that's not, I'm talking about major league. We want to be a world-class city. And wasn't able to do it. I went back to New York and spoke to Gary Bettman, who had no problem with the NHL coming here, but no team to bring here. David Stern, I had to work him over for years before he said at the time of the NBA All-Star Game, and we're the first and only city ever to have the All-Star Game without having an NBA franchise. He's sitting in my office, and I have all sorts of sports paraphernalia wherever I go, like Johnny down here. I've got my Muhammad Ali boxing gloves in there, and I like that kind of stuff. So he's sitting there holding a basketball in his hand, and he gives me a push pass. And he said, okay, the ball's in your court. I said, what does that mean, Commissioner? He said, if you can convince the owners that they have no objection to Las Vegas, I won't stand in your way getting a team here. That's all I had to hear. So we'll have an NBA team here, taking a little longer than I would have hoped. But at that time, we didn't have any team. Now we have the NHL. Carolyn and myself were back at Conference of Mayors either last year or 2 years ago, and we spoke to Commissioner Manfred with the Major League Baseball. No problem. He said, I have a problem with you, as he took the look at me. He says, I know all about you, but no problem with Las Vegas. I said, you're putting me on. You have a problem with me? He said, yeah, but that's okay. You're not the mayor anymore. We have a real mayor. So we're going to have a Major League Baseball here. We're going to have the NBA here. We have the Raiders coming.
Stay with us. There's more to come from On the Corner of Main Street.
I'm Steve Heitner, the guy who said those famous words, that's gold. So that's the name of my podcast. That's Gold with Steve Heitner. We try to expand your horizons.
It's intense, but only for like 7 seconds at a time.
I've had relationships that ran about that. We keep up on breaking sports news.
Well, wait a minute. Drunks and fornicators, I think they met in the first round of their playoffs for the right to go to hell. I think that was the way that worked, yeah.
That was the play-in game.
We are patrons of the arts. And then I also love the idea of the fictional autobiography.
Well, I didn't want to be sued, as you've learned. It's not fun.
And we take you new places.
Stop first at the RV Museum in Elkhart, Indiana.
I hear they have an amazing roadkill wing in there. That's amazing.
You gotta say they actually have the first Winnebago that ever knocked a deer into the side pocket.
We're here for you twice a week. That's Gold with me, Steve Heitner.
Welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with former Las Vegas mayor and the namesake for our steakhouse here at the Plaza, Oscar Goodman.
Do you regret telling people that you should cut the hands off of graffitiers?
Yes. If I had to do it again, I'd say I'd cut their heads off.
Thought so. Perfect.
You know, it costs the taxpayer, and that's who you represent when you're an elected official, millions of dollars in this community to keep it graffiti free as much as we do. And I don't see any Picassos out there, okay? It
isn't beautiful.
I don't see any great artists who are messing up our walls and people's property.
We're sitting inside Oscar's Steakhouse.
The greatest steakhouse in the history of the world.
I agree.
Just celebrate our 8-year anniversary.
Which is unbelievable.
How did you meet Jonathan, and how did your name end up on Oscar's
Well, he's not
Steakhouse?
going to remember how he met me, because my first recollection of Oscar was actually when I first came here. I was 23 years old, and one of the first jobs I had was various projects in downtown. And one of the people, one of the projects that our owner Poyu and his wife Anita wanted to do was to build a museum downtown called the Las Vegas Museum of Contemporary Art, which actually stands for LV Mocha, which sounds like a Starbucks drink. And we had beautiful renderings done and all this nice planning. And it was to go on 6th and Fremont, which is now the old Fingerprint building, I believe it is.
Yes, it was.
It's now like billiards and backstage billiards. Anyway.
It used to be the old Sears building, which then turned into the Fingerprint building.
Right.
And now it's whatever it is.
Exactly. So we were trying to get the city to give us that site. They did an RFP for proposals, and we went forward with our plan for the LV Mocha. And here I am, 23 years old, on my own. I stand up in front of Oscar. He won't remember it, but it was 2007. Oscar and a couple of people from the City of Business Development, and I was terrified. I was like the kid stuttering with a machete. I couldn't get a word out about this museum and what our plan was for it. And that was my first experience. And Oscar looked, and before I even started, he said, "You better not talk crap to us here. You better tell us something you're really going to do." And that really freaked me out. And that was the first thing. But they did. I think we won it. We just never ended up doing it.
I know. You know, this is not the time necessarily to give accolades, but Johnny really, to me, he's an extraordinary young man. There are two of them who are associated with the plaza. Sam Cherry being the other one. Both young people coming into sort of an adverse environment, a lot of competition, young people. And he being Johnny, has turned this place into a first-class hotel casino, winning every single prize. I mean, from the restaurant to the bingo, to the this, to the that. And Sam Cherry, who came into my office in a similar situation that Johnny talked about, but he wasn't scared. Sam came up and he was wearing Bermuda shorts and go-aheads.
He told this story for us, but I love hearing your
it's
side
true.
of it now. Go ahead.
My side? I'm saying, who are you? I said, I'm the mayor. What are you dressed this way for? Don't you have any respect? I wanted to throw him out of the 10th story. The windows didn't open. That was the only thing to save this kid's life.
Okay.
And he said, I believe in what you're saying. I believe that downtown is going to come back, and I believe that I could be a part of it. And he said that he wanted to get my blessing to build what turned out to be Soho, before Newport even. And I laughed at inside. I encouraged him, but I said, next time you come up and see me, he's like Mikey here. He always looks like he needs a loan. It's true. I said, if you ever come up to see me again, at least wear a shirt
And slacks or something.
I said, cover your toes. And Sam has been phenomenal. And so between the two of them,
I think really our moment of bonding though was when my back was bad and you saw me hunched over, and you actually just felt sorry for me, and that's when you started thinking like, yeah, I feel sorry for this kid.
well, I did
I'll
feel
be nice to
sorry
him.
for him, but then he tried to kill me. One day I'm in his office, and I sit down. He has moving chairs.
No, that was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, well, better 2 weeks ago than yesterday. Moving chairs. I try to sit down, the chair moves with me, and I end up on my keister.
Oh, no.
And then
I had to pick him up off the floor.
Yeah, with his bad back, he's picking me up off the floor.
Right.
So anyway, we're in 2010. Oscar's just finished being the mayor. We're remodeling. 2011. Oscar's just finished being the mayor. We're remodeling the plaza. This used to be a swimming pool that we're sitting in here in Oscar's Steakhouse. Then it was Center Stage, which was, you probably remember it as one of the premier restaurants in town.
I'll tell you, everybody would come to Center Stage on Sunday night. It was a family place.
Yeah.
They all came downtown.
It was famous.
It was famous, yes.
And that's where the movie Casino was filmed as well. And after that, during the years of sort of blight at the plaza, which I'm sure Oscar recalls, Center Stage closed, became something else. And then when I first came here, we actually opened a Firefly Spanish tapas restaurant in here, which was doing nicely. But during the remodel, we all felt like we needed a steakhouse. And we started working on a plan to open a steakhouse here. And Oscar, I guess, always had a vision for a speakeasy.
Yes, I always wanted a Las Vegas type place. Speakeasy, just casual, but old Vegas.
And so a fellow by the name of Michael Cornthwaite, who was a partner with us at the time, was going to open a speakeasy here at the plaza. And we couldn't figure out what to do with his speakeasy, so we said, well, why don't we talk to Oscar and maybe he'll do the speakeasy. And then the speakeasy idea kind of went away because we were getting ready to open and we didn't feel like we needed the speakeasy. But the idea of having Oscar as part of this was kind of attractive to us. So all I did was I created a rendering of the dome from Fremont Street, looking at the dome. And instead of having Firefly on the sign, I put his name, Oscar. That was it. I didn't design the place. I didn't think about the
That's
place.
all it needed.
I walked over and I put a piece of paper with his name, Oscar, on the dome.
And my image, a little
a little caricature.
Right. Yeah, that was very.
That came later on, though. That came later on.
Established.
It was a martini, right? You had a martini glass.
We had a
next
glass.
to it?
We did have a glass.
I had my ideas too, and apparently I've been overruled over time. I wanted to be Oscar's Beef, Booze, and Broads.
It was.
I know. It still
I
should
still
be.
know it. Yeah.
Would you be a broad if I? Yeah. See, Lisa, would you be a broad? No. Yes, you would. I wanted these beautiful girls to be out there serving the customers, making everybody feel at home. I wanted to have little telephones at each booth, each table. So if a guy or a girl, if a girl saw a girl, like girls, if a guy saw a guy, like guys, I don't care, girls, guys, but they could pick up the phone and dial table number 7
and say,
may I buy you a drink? I think that'd be the coolest thing in the world.
And you were overruled by this.
Not just overruled. I mean, embarrassed with the way they treated me.
You basically invented Tinder.
An analog Tinder is what it is.
So
would it be the rotary phone? I have questions. Like, would you die? Would it be the okay?
We didn't think it through. We did have a lot of fun though in creating this place, and once Oscar said, "Yeah, I'm in." This just came together within the space of a couple of months. I mean, we did a deal very quickly. We agreed on everything.
It's been great. It really has, and I'm so happy with what Johnny has done with the lounge area here. To get something done, it's like pulling teeth around here. But once the teeth are pulled, it's a nice smile. These are beautiful booths. I think they're probably the most desired place to sit in the whole joint. And it took about 15 years to get the chairs at the bar to match the
Very
booth.
nice chairs.
Very nice chairs.
These are very comfortable chairs.
They are. They're really comfortable, and they're not like the original chairs where if you got on them, you were risking your life. You just question whether it's going to break in the middle or just tip over on the right.
Did you have any hesitation to put your name on the building and on the restaurant?
That's a real good question. That's an excellent
Keeping
question.
in mind, we didn't know each other that well at the time. I mean,
That's very, very true. I knew that if what we talked about would take place, that it would be a success. And just having my name up there, even though I don't own it, it's a license agreement. My reputation is at stake.
Most people think you own it.
And I don't dissuade them.
Right.
Because the product is excellent. The food has always been the best.
Can you tell us about the dinner series and Dennis Hoff attending?
Oh,
it's
a shame.
Series?
It's a shame. Poor Dennis Hoff owned the Bunny Ranch, I believe, up in Pahrump, which is a brothel. And for those who don't understand what a brothel is, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast. Okay?
Please go to sleep. All right, go ahead.
And he is friendly with Chuck Muth, who was doing his advertising and publicity. And Dennis wanted to come down here and hear a speech, which I give during my dinner series. I pick a topic out that I think is going to be of interest, and sometimes I'll change it right on the spot depending on who the crowd is. But it's usually about old Las Vegas, one of my old cases, and I'm steaming because everyone's saying Dennis Hoff is going to be here, and to me, he was not a big deal, although he is a character.
He was sort of running for elected official.
He was running for assembly, I think.
Okay.
I think he won, correct?
I think he did.
Yeah, all right.
Post-mortem, after he
Post-mortem.
died, he won the election, which is very unusual. And he comes in towards the end of my speech, and I blast the poor guy. I mean, I'm merciless.
Like he's coming into a show and just walking
I mean,
in?
I was worse than Rickles, okay?
Okay.
I mean, I just blasted this guy. But he was a good sport. And we sat down after the speech, and Johnny was there, and we're at the table, and Dennis is holding court. And
he did come bearing gifts. He had a gown for you and the mayor, matching gifts.
He had matching
with the bunny on it.
bathrobes
Yeah.
and other small items. And it's all right. This is an adult podcast, is it not?
Sure.
And then we get word a couple of days,
Three days
later, that this poor soul, although if you're going to go, you want to go the way he went, but he went.
Agreed.
And it was shocking, actually, because he was a nice fella, and he wanted a good time, and it was a shame because we did have a good time that night.
Yeah, and I'm sitting in between Oscar and Dennis, either side of me, and I got Oscar roasting him, and I'm sitting there as this sort of, I never met Dennis before, so I had no idea what I was in for here, and they're sort of going back and forth, and I'm the middleman, and the LA Times was there that night. They wrote a nice piece about their back and forth, and the next day he passes away. The day after the LA Times piece came out.
But he passed away doing what Dennis Hopper liked to do.
Exactly.
Do you still feel the way about prostitution now as you did back then?
Oh, absolutely. I believe in anything that's consensual. If a woman wants to work at a brothel, it's safe, it's secure, it's healthy. They bring in a doctor once a month for these young ladies. I visited the Mustang Ranch when I was preparing to represent Sally Conforti on her sentencing when Judge Claiborne was appointed the judge. And those girls really had the best of it, to be honest with you. They had a first-class chef. The food was delicious. It was clean as a whistle. They chose a lifestyle, and they weren't going to be hurt. I mean, if a guy wanted to do something that was untoward, they could push a button, and that's the end of the guy. I mean,
Correct.
That's the way it worked. So it's better than being down here on, I want to get away from 18th and Stewart,
Okay.
in an alley with a woman who was completely defenseless. So I have no problem with legalized prostitution, and it would raise a little bit of money. And I just think it's better for the woman, to be quite frank with you, when she makes the choice to do it. She's safer and healthier.
So Teresa on Facebook asked,
Where does Teresa live?
San Francisco.
Who cares what she asks?
I was just going to say that's a bad answer.
What have you not done in your lifetime that is still on your bucket list to do?
It's a good question, Oscar.
It's a great question. To live every single day as fully as I can. That's the only thing I want to do. I want to get up tomorrow morning and live it, and have a good time, and I want to get up on Thursday morning and live it and have a good time.
But do you do that already?
I do. That's what I want to do.
But what's something you haven't done?
Win a sports bet.
Well, I'm not. Johnny's right. I can't ask for the impossible here. But the big shot who runs the place here.
It's not much better.
Not much better is
Not
right.
much better.
Margaret asks, what has been your proudest moment?
In his career?
Anything.
Yeah,
You're proudest. What made you feel the most proud?
My proudest moment is when my wife said, when she asked me to marry her, I said yes.
Did that really happen?
I ain't saying nothing.
He pleads the fifth. I love it.
Robert asks, if you
Robert,
could...
who?
D.
Who are these people?
He's not from San Francisco. It's okay.
Okay. What does Robert want?
If you could choose your legacy, would you want to be remembered for a specific accomplishment or achievement, or let history decide how you'll be remembered?
Well, the truth of the matter is I'm not a legacy guy. I really mean that. Legacies are for old people who don't have a life in front of them. I'm more interested in what I'm doing tomorrow rather than what I did yesterday, and I really mean that.
Lindsay asks what your favorite...
Lindsay who?
At Lindsay
Where are these
BT
people
on
coming
Twitter. From Twitter.
Where do you find these people?
Twitter.
They're interested in you.
They're your
They
fans.
really do. And next time, will you please send a check?
She asks, what's your favorite case that you've defended and why?
My clients, I never had a client, well, that's not true. I had a couple clients I really didn't like, but that didn't interfere with my representing them to make sure their rights were
Protected.
But I usually liked my clients, and I found something that's so true. There are no big shots. Everybody who has a problem, to them, it's the biggest problem in the world. It could be somebody building a fence next to your home and building it a foot too high. To that person, it's a problem so great that they'd shoot somebody about it, which is hard to believe. But so I understood. I was empathetic with my clients, understanding how their place was very difficult when they came in. And I think the toughest thing, and a great lesson that I learned, the toughest thing for a client with a problem to do is to walk through a closed door of a lawyer's office. So my office was never closed. My office door was always open, and I felt that went so far that people could come in seeking some redress or some help. I'm glad I did it that way. So I liked most of my clients. There were a couple of them who just were nasty, and I wouldn't want to socialize with them, although I didn't socialize with my clients, but I wouldn't want to socialize with some of them, but 99% I liked them.
Oscar, thank you so much.
That's it?
That's it. Thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And we
This Lisa has a career.
She's good.
She has a career in front of her.
It's pretty amazing.
To learn more about Oscar, visit www.plazahotelcasino.com/Oscars to make your Oscar Steakhouse reservation. And you can also watch a video about Oscar called Getting to Know Oscar B Goodman at the bottom of the page. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and be sure to tell your friends about this podcast. If you have any questions, you can email us at podcast@plazahotelcasino.com. You can tweet Jonathan at Jonathan Jossel, or you can tweet the Plaza at Plaza Las Vegas. We'll be back next week with another episode of On the Corner of Main Street.